Hey everyone, welcome to Module 2. So we're just going to spend a little bit of time in this video and we're going to zip through the 101 Ready to Use Excel Formulas, chapter number 5, Performing Conditional Analysis. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the other things. Now I'm going to divide this into a number of videos so you don't have to watch the whole thing in one shot. If you want to know more about what's covered in the chapter, or if you want to know more about if statements, nested if, and or, we're going to do those separately. So you're able to come back in and view the ones that you want to take a look at. And I'll try to do this every week. So this is what we're going to cover right now. If you go up to the top and under course resources, you could get the file that I'm looking at right here, and we're in the document called Chapter 5. But you're able to access all of the Microsoft book in parts 1 and 2 here. You're also able to get the 101 Excel formulas here and negotiated grades over there. And in case you're wondering, what am I supposed to read this week, you could just go up here to the top and look at the Excel weekly schedule, open up the DTO, and let's see what it says. There we go. So I'm just going to open it up and we'll scroll down to week number 2. So week number 2, we're going to cover formulas. We're going to talk about if statements, and we're going to talk about the top 10 formulas. And then this is Big Book of Dashboards, read chapter 30. And then from 101, read chapter 5. And from Microsoft Excel 1, 2, and 12, I'm going to put the PDF of these onto Moodle, so you'll be able to take a look at those formulas as well. Okay, and then everything is due in week 3 for group assignment 2 and quiz 2. Quizzes are easy and super tiny. You should have no problem reading those, and basically just drop off the groups, the same assignment that we had before. Okay, so let's take a look at some formulas from 101. All right, so we're going to start off on page 79. The first thing that we're looking at for formula number 44 is to check whether a simple condition is met. So here we have all of these, I don't even know what they are, numbers. I think they're temperatures, but I'm not 100% sure. Or there's some kind of numbers. And, oh, it's actually gas prices, I guess. So it's the average price of a gallon of gas in that state per month. Okay, so this top table has California in August, September, October, November, December, and January. It's measured the average price of that month, and it gives us a number. So we could see how the price in California changes versus Colorado. You could even do something like over here, we can go to where it says insert sparkline. I could grab my data like this, and I could look at a really quick trending line. If I drag those down, I sort of get a general indication of where things are going, and of course, we could put that into a chart. We could look at wins and losses. There's a lot of different things we could do with those numbers to understand what's happening. So our question now for conditional analysis is we want to see whether a gas price is higher or lower than the average. Okay, so when we look at this 3.919 in comparison to all of these numbers, which are the high, which are the low. So we could grab them all like this and go to conditional formatting, and we could look at ones that are over the average, for example, right? So let's look at above average, and we're going to make above average green. Okay, that actually didn't work because I grabbed the whole thing. What I really need to do is grab each one. So we're going to grab the series like this. We'll go to top bottom rows. I'm going to do above average, and we're going to do that in green. Okay, so that's one way I can do it. However, here instead, we're going to use a formula, and we're going to do that in an if statement. So if you already know what an if statement is, fast forward the next 3 minutes. If you don't, I'm going to do a laughably fantastic version of an if statement in Paint, right? So we talked a little bit about this in last week in class, and basically what we're looking at is we have a decision, then we have what happens if that's true, and then we have what happens if it's false. This is our most basic if statement, a logical test, and we basically check something. So for example, let's say we throw in two variables, 5 equals 5. Now that's true, so that's going to mean that in this box we're going to write true. If it's false, we could have it write false, right? Something like that. Now, instead of writing 5, we could put is A1 versus B1, And then as we drag down, this will change depending if it goes to the true side or the false side. If we want to do a nested if statement, then we're just going to keep on going like this. And instead of having true or false, we're going to have true. And then here we're going to have false, or sorry, true. And then here we're going to have false, right? So it basically gives us another level. And we could just keep on going and adding levels. You could do a whole bunch. I think it's like over 60 levels in the newer version of Excel. However, that's probably a terrible idea because they get really long and overworldly, and there's probably an easier way to solve the problem. Okay, so let's go back and put that into formula terms. Okay, so what we're going to do is we want to find out if California is higher than average. We know it is because California, Massachusetts, New York, and Washington are coming up in green, but we're going to do this formulaically. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to type in equals if, and we're going to check if C3, right, so that's the one that we have for California, is greater than the average of C $3 to C $11, right? So it's we have two formulas here. One is our if statement, and inside of it, we're checking if C3 is greater than the average of this number. Now you'll notice that we're still inside the logical test part, right? So we're still testing something. In this case, is C3 bigger than whatever? Now you might ask, why are we putting in dollar signs for C3 and C11? That's because we want to select this. Now we want the C part to move, so it's going to change from C, D, E, F, G, H, but it's not going to change the numbers and keep on going down this way. So it's always going to stay in these cells, and it's going to move to the right as we drag, but it won't go up and down, right? Now, what happens if it's true? We're going to write high. So the gas prices are higher than average. Otherwise, we're going to write low. Now, anything that goes inside these brackets, you could write higher than average. That would work too, right? It's completely up to you. It doesn't really matter. Anything that goes inside the quotes is what ends up getting printed. Okay, so this is going to say higher. Now, as I drag it out this way, okay, it's going to tell me, just like right here, it's higher for California. I can copy and paste that over here. Okay, so it's telling me higher. Now, can I drag this guy down this way? Right, I can. So it's going to go and drag down this way. Now let's look at the formula. So here it's saying, is C3 bigger than the average of C3 to C11? And here it's saying, is C4 larger than the average of C3 to C11? So it's selecting the same box, the same variables, but we're testing a different one. The next one's going to be C5 and so on. You'll notice that these guys don't move either because it's the same box, but if we drag the other way, they will start to change. So we'll go this way. And now we're testing Colorado. All right, so let's grab Colorado. We'll paste it down in our chart. That almost worked. Let's try it one more time. There we go. Okay, so now if you go over here, we're testing these guys. Whereas if we go over here, we're testing these, right? So basically the idea is that in 44, we're checking to see if that simple condition is met, but we could have any formula nested inside of another. So in this case, our logical statement is we're testing if G4 is larger than the average or something else. Average with those brackets is its own formula. The most important thing you have to remember when you're doing formulas is that every time you open a bracket, every time the bracket opens, it has to close. They always have to have a buddy, right? If for whatever reason you're doing a bunch of if statements and the formula is not closed, it's simply not going to work. Okay, so that's really critical. Now, we could do the same thing with multiple conditions, so more complex conditions, as we add multiple checks, right? And you could see an example of that on page 81 with formula 45. So we can go into many more levels in order to do that. Now, the problem is that nested if functions can become very complicated, and there could be far too many of them. So we could use alternatives like VLOOKUP inside of an if statement. And to see an example of that, take a look on page page 83. 83. Right, so sometimes that becomes a way to do it. Now, we could also check whether a condition is met. That's formula 46. And let's go on to and or. Okay, so that will be in the next video.